Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and in this video I'm going to review and do blood glucose tests on 3 different breads from Wal Mart. Yeah, I know I'm only holding 2, but trust me, we'll do 3. It seems like every time I do a bread review, I get a request to do a different brand of bread review. So this time I'm going to do 3 different breads that my wife picked up for me at Wal Mart. Because she picked them up, I have no idea what's in them. I don't know if they're any good or not. But I will test them all the same way I tested the other breads in my other videos. And I'll link to that playlist at the end of this video. But the way I test is I do 1 slice of bread just straight up, tasting, testing texture, and then 1 slice toasted and buttered. Then I perform a blood glucose test over the course of 2 hours using a continuous glucose monitor. Now, another important point is I am not a diabetic, either type 1 or type 2. So bear in mind as you see any sort of measurements on my glucose that those are my measurements. Yours may vary. Additionally, I do all of my glucose testing in a fasted state with a level blood glucose. So I check my monitor, make sure everything's level. And let's see, it is 11:20 in the morning right now. The last time I ate was dinner last night, so I'm definitely in a fasted state. The first bread that I'm going to review is the Lewis brand Healthy Life Keto bread. It says there's a little chunk of ice on there, 0 grams of net carbs. So let's take a look at the nutritional information. 30 calories per slice, that's the serving size. 1 gram of fat, 5 grams of protein, 9 grams of total carbohydrates, of which 8 grams is fiber and 1 gram is allulose for a net 0. Now in terms of ingredients, this is where things start getting a little bit sketchy. And probably had I been buying this, well, I probably wouldn't have, because I would have looked at the ingredients. My wife purchased this. Here's the ingredient list. Water, resistant wheat starch. Don't know about that. Wheat protein isolate, yeast, allulose. And then it contains 2% or less of the following. Soybean oil, which for me is a big no-go. Soy lecithin, salt, dough conditioner, calcium propionate, sorbic acid, steviol glycoside, Reb-M, so another sweetener, hydrogenated cottonseed oil, fumaric acid, guar gum. So, for me, at least, the big issues here are the soy related, well, and the cottonseed. So you get hydrogenated cottonseed oil. I'm not happy about. And then we've got the soybean oil. That's a problem. Still, I'm going to test it out, and we'll see what happens. So first, just my regular slice of bread. The tear and the flex on this is moderately gluten-y. The taste on it, basically, it's what I remember Wonder Bread kind of tasting like. Although, let's see, when I squish it together, yeah, it even kind of, if I squish it up, even squishes like Wonder Bread. Probably just turn this into a dough ball. Yeah, a lot like Wonder Bread. Now, I'm not a super big fan of white bread. I like bread to be a little bit more hearty. And this dates back way, prior to keto, obviously. But if you do like Wonder Bread, this seems like a pretty close facsimile. I have my toasted and buttered bread here, and I'm going to take a snapshot of it using the Levels software, which is what I use to do my glucose analysis. And I will include a link with more information on that program down below in the description in case you're curious. It's not cheap, but the information that it gives you, pretty impressive. So we'll snap a picture, click save to start the timer, and then we'll give it a taste. Now the reason I do toasted in addition to just plain bread is, first I want to see how this behaves when it's got some butter on it and it's been toasted. Meaning, does it get all powdery? I've had some of these breads also that the moment you put butter on it, it seems like the bread almost starts to dissolve. That's not the case in this one. That is darn close to regular bread or regular toast. I mean, If I were at a Denny's or something like that, and I got this for my toast, I wouldn't question that it's regular versus keto. I wouldn't know the difference. Yeah, taste and texture, this is close enough to real bread that I feel like I'm doing something wrong being on keto and eating this. But I'm going to finish this and then be back in 2 hours to take a look at the blood glucose response. I will also use my Keto Mojo to take a blood glucose reading at 1 hour, which is typically about the time that I'm going to peak on my blood glucose if there is a spike. So, see you shortly. It's been a little bit over 2 hours since I had that bread. I tested my blood glucose using a Keto Mojo at 1 hour, and you can see I was at 114 for my glucose. And then I also tested with the Freestyle Libre app, and you can see they sync right up at 114. So good to see that the data is consistent between multiple devices. Now let's open up the Levels software and see how that bread performed over the full 2-hour period. All right, the score was a 5 out of 10. That is a moderate spike. And if we go into Analyze, we can see that the glucose change was 30 points. That is pretty much the agreed upon threshold for what constitutes a spike. Additionally, my blood glucose was above the target threshold of 110 for 38 minutes. So the combination between the size of the spike and the time over threshold is what gave us that score of 5. So on the whole, I'm going to have to give that bread a no-go. I probably wouldn't buy it anyway, just based on the soybean oil and the hydrogenated cottonseed oil, but the fact that it is also causing a glucose spike despite the 0 net carbs, that's a bread I'm going to probably have to pass on. But I will be back tomorrow to test another bread, this time the Lewis Hawaiian bread. For the next bread that I'm going to try out from Wal Mart, I will be tasting the Lewis Healthy Life Keto Hawaiian. In terms of the carb count on this, it's 9 grams of total carbs per slice, 8 grams of dietary fiber, 1 gram of allulose for a net 0 grams. The ingredients, similar to the other bread, water-resistant wheat starch, wheat protein isolate, yeast, and 2% or less of the following: soybean oil, allulose, stevia, steviol glycoside, a lot of stuff in parentheses here, calcium propionate, fumaric acid, sorbic acid, guar gum, hydrogenated cottonseed oil, ground turmeric, and soy lecithin. So I think really the only big difference that I saw in there is the ground turmeric, which would give the bread more of a yellowish sort of color, kind of like Hawaiian rolls. And as you can see here, it does have more of that yellow tint to it than the bread that I had previously. Now, I love Hawaiian rolls, especially those ones by King. Oh, so good. I mean, they're so soft. There's not big air pockets or anything in it, but they're not dense. They're just soft and sweet. And honestly, I could rip through an entire tray of those Hawaiian rolls. So good. I mean, you can even smell them. This does not have that smell. Now, when I just pulled it apart there and it separated, I actually saw some dust kind of fly away. So whatever is kind of holding this together is not gluten, obviously. It tastes vaguely like a Hawaiian roll. There's something really weird at the end on my palate. I don't know what that is. It doesn't taste like anything that I've ever had from nature. And the texture is just all wrong for a Hawaiian roll or Hawaiian bread. I guess we'll see how this toasts up. So while I was toasting the slice, I finished eating the other slice of bread. There is something wrong with that bread. And I'm not saying that the specific loaf I got is bad. I'm just saying that bread is not right. I feel like I should say that like Hank Hill. That bread's not right. That's the best I could do. All right, we've got our buttered, toasted version of the bread, and I'm going to take a snapshot of it to kick off the Levels software. See if this gets any better toasted. It's better toasted, I think the butter goes a long way towards covering up whatever that weird taste I was getting was, but it's still far from spectacular. Now I'm going to finish this and I will be back in 2 hours with the glucose test results. So while that 2 hours was going by, I did a little bit of editing of this earlier video, and I noticed that I mispronounced turmeric. I pronounced it turmeric, like tumor. It's not a tumor. And it's not turmeric, it's turmeric. Anyhow, I've got the results from the blood glucose, and let's take a look at this. Wow, that is no good at all. A 2 out of 10. We'll check out Analyze. You can see that my blood glucose peaked at 138. That was a 48-point change in glucose, and I was above that 110 threshold for 53 minutes. Not very good. Also, I scanned myself right at about that 1 hour mark with my Keto Mojo, and you can see at that point I was at a 131. So again, very consistent results between the blood glucose monitor and the continuous glucose monitor. And if you're wondering where that is, I actually have it right here. So when I go to scan, here, you can hear it. There. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm back to a 93 right now. So for that Lewis Hawaiian bread, that's pretty much 3 strikes. Crappy ingredients, doesn't taste good, and a huge glucose spike. So I would say don't buy that bread. I'll be back in the next segment to take a look at the third and final bread from Wal Mart. For the third and final bread that my wife picked up for me at Walmart, we have the Brownberry Superior Keto Bread. Now this states 11 total grams of carbs, 8 grams of dietary fiber equals 3 net grams. So either this is higher in net grams of carbs than those other 2 brands, or they're just a little more honest in reporting it. In terms of ingredients, we have water, modified wheat starch, wheat protein isolate, oat fiber, sunflower flour, soluble corn fiber, organic soybean oil, yeast, inulin, natural flavors, sea salt, mono and diglycerides, preservatives, soy lecithin, guar gum, xanthan gum, citric acid. The bread itself, sort of a similar tear, actually perhaps a slightly more gluten-y sort of tear than that Lewis bread. It's okay. Sort of Wonder Bread tasting, but a little drier. Also, Wonder Bread, I think, has a little bit more sweetness to it. I would just say it's okay. There is sort of something weird, I don't know how I would describe it, that sort of lingers on the palate a bit, but let's see how it does toasted. Once again, I'll snap a picture to kick off the levels analysis, and we'll see how it tastes toasted. One of the most consistent things that I've discovered in all of my bread tests, with just a couple of exceptions, once toasted and buttered, every one of these goes up at least a couple of notches, and this is no exception. This actually became a decent bread. I didn't care for it when it was a bread, but when it's toasted bread and buttered, this is actually pretty good. Yeah, of the 3, I can say that this is easily my favorite. But we'll see how it affects my blood glucose when I come back in 2 hours. It's been a little over 2 hours, so let's see how that Brownberry bread behaved. First off, I did take a reading both with the Freestyle Libre, which I got right here, as well as the Keto Mojo blood glucose monitor, and let's compare those at 1 hour. So you can see I was at 120 on the Freestyle Libre and 119 on the Keto Mojo. So once again, very consistent readings between the 2. Now, let's take a look at the Brownberry bread in the Levels software. It scored a 5, or a moderate spike. If we go to Analyze, we can see that we peaked at 124, total glucose change was 29. And as I said before, 30 is usually what I consider and what a lot of people consider a spike, but we're close, we're right on the edge. And we spent 30 minutes over that 110 threshold. Now we're going to go into the compare feature in the Level software. And this is just one of my favorite geek out sort of tools within this software. We're going to compare the Brownberry bread to that first Lewis bread that we had. So first, in terms of absolute readings, it actually looks like the Brownberry bread is a little bit worse, but that's because they started at different places. If we go to relative and we start them both at a 0, you can see that that Lewis bread was a smidge worse. Not that either of them are especially great, but what if we were to compare the Brownberry bread to the Kiss My Keto golden wheat? You can see that the Brownberry is in the green, the golden wheat is the white. That kind of gives you an idea of the differences in some of these keto breads. So for all three of these breads from Wal Mart, the 2 Lewis and the Brownberry, I'm going to have to say no. The ingredients, kind of sketchy. The blood glucose spike, not something I'm looking for. And furthermore, what I noticed with the Lewis breads in particular was some inflammation in my knees. My knees felt really bad for the couple of days after eating that bread. Going upstairs especially, really a lot of pain. So for me, I don't know whether that's the soybean oil, usually that's what gets me, or if it's one of the wheat products that's in there. But on the whole, I'm going to say not great breads. Anyhow, I hope that this video was helpful and that you can make an informed purchase or lack of purchase now that you know what these breads are all about. If you did find it helpful, please click that like button. If you're not a subscriber already, tap that subscribe button, then hit the bell to turn on all notifications. And if you'd like to help support the Serious Keto Test Kitchen, click that join button and see what memberships and perks are all about. Thanks for watching.